Hey, welcome back. Now, it's a really interesting thing when the VIX turns, looks like it's going to go in one direction, and then does a little bit of a head fake and turns the other way. The thing is, you can still regroup, reanalyze, and move forward with this. So let me show you how. Before we look at the charts, important reminder that trading and investing can be extremely risky business, therefore it's your responsibility to evaluate any information, opinion, advice, or other content contained in my video. So here we have the latest chart of the VIX as an example. So you can see here that I had a falling blue trend line, a rising pink trend line, and the VIX initially broke down out of the sideways range. And at the time that this was happening, I had noted a support level here on the VIX of 25.38. So we got a couple days below it. So it looked like, all right, the VIX is falling, broad market's going to rise, looking good. Now, we don't trade just off the VIX, right? Or at least you shouldn't be. Because when you looked at the corresponding price action, like on the S&P 500 or the ES, it was actually going sideways. But the important thing is here is you may have suddenly turned around and seen that there was this move in the other direction and been wondering, what do I do to regroup? So I'm going to show you from scratch here what I did to regroup and be prepared for the rise in the VIX that corresponded with falling prices. So number one is you always want to make sure that you are looking at not only the VIX candlestick chart, its price, and yes, it's the most important information, but there are other clues you can get from your charts. And the RSI power zones are my biggest help when it comes to a quick turn on the VIX and reassessing where it might go. So you can see here that the RSI power zones held the bull support power zone. Now, I teach more about the RSI power zones in my Winning RSI playbook, which starts out the 4 zones and RSI training system. So now that we have seen this sort of breakout, fake out, the VIX turned higher, it even went above this resistance at 28.35, what do we do? Well, first, after you have looked back and seen if any other clues might have helped you, then come in and clean up your chart, okay? So I'm just gonna come in and say, okay, I don't need that support and resistance anymore. Now, before you delete any trend lines or any other annotations, look to see if they can actually be revisited, right? It's a reanalyzing. We don't need to analyze from scratch. So I'm going to do this right here with you. So the way I see it, if I kind of just look at the action on the VIX candlesticks and take my eyeballs back. So we made a low here. We were shooting up higher from it. That was within the context of all this choppiness from this high, which brought us higher from this low. Again, I'm moving backwards on the chart, guys. It's a little funny feeling the first time you do it, but trust me, it's a very valuable exercise. This low formed after this high, and this high formed after these lows right here. So what I'm seeing is a little bit of an angular form here that might have a trend line that corresponds with it. So I'm going to take away the breakout trend line because this doesn't help me anymore. I'm going to recycle it, meaning I'm just going to use the same tool, make it lower on my chart, and then hook it where I need to. So here and here, and boom, look at that. Look at how the market actually, or the VIX rather, actually came to a rising trend line that I didn't have on the chart, but that actually coincided with the VIX holding the bull support power zone. So now you can leave that pink rising trend line in place. And let's do the same for the blue falling trend line. So for this blue falling trend line, all right, we have broken above the highs. It could end up still being useful. So I'm not going to completely remove it. For this case, I'm going to create a parallel and I'm going to create another blue falling trend line off of highs. And the reason I'm using these blue and pink colors, guys, that ties back to my forecasting tools. I'm basically using half of a forecasting tool when I draw a trend line. So you can learn more about that in the Loss Forecasting Trading System if you like. So when I bring my eyeballs back, okay, now I'm going to go even bigger swings. So quarterly, sit back from your screen and follow along. From the breakout that we are seeing now to the upside on the VIX, there's this low. There's this high. There's this low. Okay, I'm skipping all the stuff in the middle. There's this set of highs, this low, and this high. So do you see it? Do you see how there's that bigger set of moves in there? All right, awesome. So I'm going to take this line that I just recycled, hook it to this first high, hook it to the second high, and see if it's helpful. And there we go. Now I'll change the color on the original one, just so I don't get confused. So I'm just going to change that to black, but I'm not going to remove it. And now I can see, okay, there is pressure on this updated blue falling trend line that might be important to monitor as the VIX rises. So this happens to be a case study of what's happening now, which is the best way to teach you. But the steps that I outlined here will always be helpful. So again, step one, when you see a sudden turn, go back to your chart and see, was there something else that I missed that could have clued me into this? Step two, if you have trend lines or annotations on your chart, don't necessarily just erase all of them. Okay, erase the ones that aren't serving you anymore, but redraw and reanalyze using the others. And then from there, reassess where you are going and what you would like to be doing in your trading to fall in line here. So as long as I'm seeing this move higher, I'm going to be watchful of the broad market, expecting it to continue to be weak or move lower. But now I know, hey, there might be a little bit of a warning sign here that the VIX might top out, which might coincide with at least a short-term market bottom. Awesome, guys. Well, you can pull any one of those steps or all of them together to definitely help you improve how you are approaching the VIX going forward. And with that, let's also finish out with a little bit of forecasting. So I'm going to pause the screen and do a teensy bit of forecasting here in the VIX and be back. All right, now I wasn't gone for very long. Pause the screen for maybe 15 seconds. Came up with a long-term forecast on the VIX. Now, forecasts have two components to them, a price element or candlestick chart element, and then the actual time. So here I'm on a daily chart of the VIX. So every candle and every space forward represents 1 day of market action. So you can see here that I have added this purple vertical line, and it's noting July 11th, 2022. And it doesn't mean that there won't be wiggles and turns in the VIX along the way, but that is now a key timing point. So if the VIX continues to rise into July 11th, which would mean the broad market continue to fall, again, not necessarily in a straight line, but if that happens, then I'm looking at July 11th as a key timing point to monitor for a bigger turn in the VIX. Now, if the VIX chops around a little bit more ahead of that, doesn't really start to rise into July 11th, then the meaning of the July 11th date might change, okay? Those key timing points in a forecast, guys, what happens at those times adapts and shifts based on what the price action is coming into it. And again, I teach how to be ready for those moments, which is essentially, if your forecast is wrong, how to still make money from it in the loss forecasting trading system. So this has been a really awesome opportunity for me to show you a couple of ways to readjust, reanalyze, especially for something like the VIX, which so many of us watch and use to monitor the market volatility and manage our trades. So remember to subscribe, like, comment down below, and follow, and I'll catch you next time. You can sign up with the link to get my hot, timely, actionable updates as soon as I publish right to your inbox.